Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to build a pretty radical theory. It's called TGR, and it proposes a physics of meaning. It treats ideas, thoughts, and connections not as just philosophy, but as a fundamental force of the universe itself. So here's our game plan. We're going to construct this theory from the ground up, basically building a pyramid of understanding. Each section is a new layer, building on the last, until we get to the very top, a truly unified vision of reality. So let's start at the very bottom, right at the foundation of this pyramid. We're going to begin with a really simple question that, when you look closely, reveals a deep crack in how we see the world. I mean, it sounds simple, right? But really think about it for a second. How does an idea, something totally immaterial floating around in your mind, cause the very real, very material atoms in your arm to actually move? This points to a massive gap in our understanding of how mind and matter even talk to each other. The theory we're digging into, TGR, kicks things off with a pretty bold claim. It argues that these aren't just different subjects you'd study. No, it calls them fundamentally distinct logical spaces, or topos. The easiest way to picture it is to imagine them as parallel universes: physics, cognition, and society, each with its own set of unbreakable laws and no obvious bridge connecting them. And this is what that problem looks like in the language of the theory. It shows each world existing side by side, but they don't touch. There's a gap. This little formula right here represents the central mystery that TGR sets out to solve. How does anything ever cross these massive divides? Okay, let's climb up to that first layer of our pyramid and see how this theory offers a really radical solution to this separation. It doesn't try to build a physical bridge, it suggests something way more interesting. Instead of energy or information somehow passing between these worlds, TGR says there's this universal resonance field. The best analogy is a piano string. It doesn't need to be physically struck to vibrate, right? If another instrument plays the perfect frequency nearby, it starts to hum, all on its own. TGR suggests all of reality works just like that. And this is where it gets really wild, because it completely flips how we think about connection. It says connection isn't about sharing what you have, like information. It's about aligning the very shape of what you're missing. Two things connect when the holes in their structures are a perfect match. That's a total game changer. So if everything connects through this resonance field, then what exactly are the things that are connecting? Well, the theory calls them viable forms, and you can think of them as the fundamental particles of meaning. Now, a viable form isn't a static, dead object. It's a dynamic, living structure. It could be a scientific theory, a living cell, or even a social movement. And for any of these to survive, they have to be perfectly balanced between four competing forces. This is the law of viability. It's like a balanced budget for an idea to stay alive. Its four core components must always sum to one. You've got its extension, which is its reach, its maintain, its internal coherence, its propagation, its power to act, and finally, its residue. And this last one is the key: its inherent imperfection, its flaw. The source puts this beautifully. Imperfection is not a failure of the form, but its condition for connection. That residue, that gap, isn't a weakness or a mistake. It's the whole point. It's the docking port. It's the very thing that allows an idea to plug into the resonance field and connect with anything else. According to this theory, a perfect idea is a sterile one. It's dead on arrival. Let's keep building on this. We have these imperfect, viable forms. But how do they actually move through this resonance field? If they aren't exchanging energy, what does their movement even look like? This theory says that meaning originates from a singularity, a foundational idea, a core question, or a revolutionary event that creates a kind of gravitational pull on all related thoughts. You can orbit it, you can get closer to it, but you can never, ever truly reach it or put it at your center. And this leads to an incredibly powerful theorem. Any system, whether it's a personality, a science, or a society, that successfully places its founding principle at its absolute center becomes a rigid dogma. It becomes perfect, loses its essential imperfection, and therefore it dies. So the only way for a thought to stay alive, to stay viable, is to move in a spiral. It has to constantly deepen its relationship with its origin without ever collapsing into it. The detour, taking the long way around, isn't a waste of time. It's the only path that keeps the idea alive. Okay, now we're climbing higher up the pyramid to what is really the climax of the theory. We know ideas need flaws, and they move in spirals. But how do two separate minds actually connect across that fundamental gap we started with? Well, first, TGR just throws the standard model of communication out the window. You know the one, I have an idea, I encode it, I send it to you to reduce your uncertainty. TGR says this is just wrong because it assumes we share a common space to begin with, which we don't. Instead, TGR proposes this theorem, which is the mathematical heart of the entire theory. Now, don't worry about the symbols. What this equation proves is that resonance, that real connection between two minds, A and B, can only happen when the underlying structure of their internal gaps is identical. It's not about having the same thoughts, it's about having the same shaped questions. So here's the crucial point. True understanding isn't recognizing an answer in someone else. It's recognizing the exact shape of your own internal struggle, your own deepest question, perfectly mirrored in them. That is the moment of resonance. And with that, we've reached the apex of the pyramid. Now we can see how TGR takes all these different pieces and locks them together, finally bridging that massive gap between the physical, the cognitive, and the social world. The theory defines a true act as a tensor gesture. Think of it as a single event that perfectly aligns across all three of those separate realms at the exact same time. A thought alone is incomplete. A physical action without meaning is empty. But a true gesture, like a protest, a work of art, or even a simple handshake, binds them all into one coherent event. This table really shows the true unifying power of the theory. Just look at how the core concepts map across the different realms. The site where things happen is space-time for physics, but it's the mind for cognition. That imperfection or residue we talked about, in physics it manifests as gravitational tension. In an idea, it's a paradox. In a society, it's a social contradiction. It's the same underlying structure everywhere, just wearing a different costume, revealing a deep unity to all of reality. This leaves us with a final, provocative thought from the source, which translates to reality is the spiraling structure between what is and what cannot be said. So maybe reality isn't a collection of objects at all. Maybe it's just the endless, dynamic dance between what we can know and the profound, unanswerable questions that keep us spiraling forward.